Hello and welcome to another video. So we're revisiting the Endless Artifact. I have made a fair few changes to the deck at this point. We are now running the Synthetic Beast over the other follower just because I wanted to mix it up a little bit, and while they serve similar roles, they are slightly different too, but I wanted the extra Radiant Artifacts. I felt like those were going to be pretty important, so I wanted to include them. I did drop Spinaria and going for a single Hikarabe now instead, along with double Manga Legacy for our clears. I have considered Puppet Strings, but don't feel like that's probably the answer. So we're going to get right into this and check it out. So our first matchup is against Shadow. Shadow can normally present a little bit of a problem in some areas, but not overall. It's usually a fairly easy class to beat in the rotation format. At this stage anyway, I'm sure that it will get a power boost in future. I'm not sure how far ahead that future will be, but I can expect that next expansion Shadow will probably get at least half decent cards, which could cause a long-term issue, but we'll see how that goes. Either way, right now the matchup is definitely favoured to Portal, at least in my opinion, with most Portal decks being fairly decent in every single matchup, with very few negative other than maybe Forest and Aggro Blood that I always feel are their worst two. So it is personal, of course. You can't have an objective look at most of these decks just because we don't have the reliable stats for it, but at least it's pretty reasonable against everything I normally use it for. So making a reasonably small error in some regards here. I probably should have just killed this Belinus outright instead of using the 2-1 there and like that, but I did go for it just to see how this would play out, and unfortunately a second Belinus was paid anyway. But not too bad. We do get to make that up with the Hamelin and Analyzing Artifact. Although we will lose both of them, I would rather take the draw from the Analyzing and at least have a decent hand going into turn 5. So definitely not the best options that I could have went with, but ones that I were quite comfortable playing. Especially with double Analyzing Artifact this turn. I mean, getting those out, pretty key. It was a lucky draw, of course. If I hadn't have got that draw, it would have been much more awkward. Corpse Lord of Woe lines up perfectly with my Substitution, with basically being forced to trade into one of these anyway. Means I am going to get rid of the Corpse Lord basically for free at this point. So getting a draw and then using Substitution to remove Corpse Lord, at least to me, feels really reasonable. And the Mecha Wing will really help us just stock up our deck a little bit, going into turn 6 with Desek Machina on curve. Although, thanks to having Analyzing on board, the odds of having Deseks actually be able to go off next turn is decreased a fair amount, but we have got a Puppet to at least back that up, along with a fairly good hand overall with Cat Cannoneer and Saphira both having rushed. And Aisha, exactly what I kind of expected, is going to trade. 2 for 1, killing them off pretty easily. Of course, it means we're not in Resonance, a little bit disappointing, but something I'm willing to accept considering our hand is really quite good. And next turn in Resonance is actually going to be really decent, with both Synthetic Beast, Cat Cannoneer, the Ancient Artifact, and Puppet all being viably playable. Of course, Skeleton Prince with an Evo. That's a fairly decent way to get rid of this 4-5, so not too bad from the Shadow player. But next turn is going to be crunch time, as the opponent is going to have to deal with what I've got here. We are going to be able to pretty easily remove a good chunk of this, leaving probably nothing on the board really, with the Cat Cannoneer and Puppet both trading off very, very easily. Cat Cannoneer though is pretty harsh, so it's not surprising that it gets put in a lot of decks, with both having rush and the more rush like off it is great. So clearing out this board, setting up a pretty solid one for myself, and having Resonance go off, meaning I get to restock my hand with very good cards overall. Manga Legacy is actually going to have some decent value in clearing stuff out, and a Radiant Artifact plus Firefab is actually pretty decent for the following turn. So we get to remove this entire board. We can go for either 4 or 6 damage depending on whether we want to use our Evolve or not. Saving the Evolve though I do feel was a good decision, especially if we wanted to play something like Prime. So them seeing the concede, not too shabby there at all. Next up, we're playing against Portal, which is a hybrid variant, so expect to see a nice matchup between a hybrid Portal and a more artifact-based Portal, or as I call it, Endless Artifact, because that's pretty much what I've designed it to do. produce artifacts endlessly to a point where you're never really running out of deck and always have cards that you can play. It's very few times that I brick with this deck. And even if I don't get things like Des Ex, usually I can work with what I get, so it's not really too bad at all. So, turn 2, looking good. Mage Steel Lion, of course I can't use Synthetic Being, just because of how it is. That's where the other Prime one is a little bit better, because I can play at any time, regardless of going first or second, whereas Synthetic Being really needs to be going second, or pretty much having a really good solid turn 1. But it's also really good because I get that Radiant in the deck, which is important, especially if you don't draw Des. Getting Radiance in really help you out. We do have the Manga Legacy already though, so being able to counter this player shouldn't be too bad at all. Of course, I don't tend to rely on Saphira too much either, mainly just focusing on my board more than anything, where Saphira is kind of just a late game finish if I need it. Of course, depending on playstyle makes a big difference too. I mean, you can play this deck a lot more leaning towards Saphira over anything else, but personally it really depends on my matchup. If I know I'm going up against a slower deck, Saphira makes a really good option to finish them off if I need to. If I'm going up against a much faster deck, I tend to try and get rid of as much as I can while sticking as much as I can, so it really just depends on how you're playing. So the Machine Soldier doing extremely well, getting that draw and the Analyzing Artifact, which is pretty decent value. We do also get a pretty perfect trade against this 4-4 with our 4-5, so happy with that too. Leaving a 4-1 up and a 2-2, pretty decent against Portal. Unfortunately, Spinaria is almost perfect to deal with this, just because the trades are pretty optimal. I do make a slight error going into this next turn, which I'm sure you'll see pretty immediately. Because I could have dealt with this Spinaria much easier, could have saved myself the Evo, all that kind of stuff, especially drawing the Substitution. If I had have just rammed this Cat Cannoneer that I have here straight into the Spinaria and then used Substitution on that and used my Puppet to trade for the 1-1, could have got the exact same results and I would have actually been a lot better off. Instead of doing this and just having a Puppet to show for it, and I would have got to keep my Evo point. So I pretty much traded an Evo point for a Puppet, and I don't feel like that was the right decision. I'm sure that you guys would think the same thing. But at the time, I just overlooked that kind of combo until it was too late. I'd already Evo'd and was like, well, it's too late for that. And we can start finally getting things on board. I really wanted to have an artifact out because Manga Legacy is playable next turn, and if I have no value to that at all, I would be a little worried. Victoria, kind of a nightmare. I mean, it can basically kill these off for free without any issue at all. Really forcing me to use my Puppet to kill off the Victoria. And I can't use the Manga Legacy yet, at least not decently. So I do go for the Hikarabe, even though I don't get the Resonance effect off it, which would have been better, getting a couple of artifacts. I can at least do a fairly decent board against this, and I can actually hold my Ancient Artifact because I'm not going to be able to get rid of this 4-4 yet anyway, so I may as well hold it for turn 9, where I can play both Manga Legacy and Ancient Artifact.
Can't be restrained.
Luckily we do get to see the full Puppet play, so we can actually do a fairly decent turn if we check on this Manga. With only having one, that's still pretty good.
I must rest.
So considering the board, we have a fairly decent hand. I mean, now we've got double Ancients, which is fairly good, although I can't play both this turn. I can remove this entire board now, which is great without using anything else. And we got a couple damage to face, which really helps us out. And sticking a 6-6 against a Puppet deck is really decent. So the Soldier is going to get its couple of plays off, so it's not too bad for them being able to pull artifacts. Puppet Room, really trying to build up those Puppets, probably looking to gain some kind of finisher off them. Excel is good, but not great when we have Radiant and Ancient Artifact. I mean, at least it is going to let us get these out basically for free. So really we just spent 1 point to get all of our artifacts, and we get Rush on this Analyzing, which is really good. So the Ironforged Fighter works out really well. Fortunately, with the Radiant Artifact, I can actually use both of these really easily anyway, with actually having 1 point left over, so it wasn't going to be an issue. And it means I can go 10 damage to face, set them to 8, and have a really strong board. Plus we get the draw off the Radiant Artifact if it is destroyed. So 2 draws is fairly reasonable.
They matter not.
Unfortunately, if we do get the Deus Ex Machina, unless they do kill this 4-3, which I reckon they will, we will be in Resonance, which is decent and pretty usable. They are having to waste a lot of resources to remove this. And getting a second Manga Legacy now is actually really good. Although we don't have much to use it on, I don't want to waste it straight away on this 3-2 on its own. I feel like I need to wait until they really go for another board. And luckily, the Soldier is a good draw for that. Especially drawing Prime Artifact, which I can play straight away off this. Getting those good draws is what you want to see when you're playing Portal. I mean, any artifact would have been good because it basically would have killed that, but that was probably one of the better ones to get. Unfortunately, it does get banished, which I can't say is fortunate, that's for sure. But it was pretty much guaranteed to be a banishment target, so it's not too surprising. And again, they don't really give me a board that I want to throw Manga Legacy at, so it's definitely not something I'm playing. Magna is just something I like to use pretty effectively. We do get to drop them to 2 though, which I quite like, so they're definitely not going face next turn. They're definitely going to be trading with this board as much as they can first. And thanks to the way it's set up, I've actually got a fairly good chance. So Legacy pretty much buys us a turn and can clear pretty much anything that Puppet Portal can play now, having 7 damage to it once this Radiant is removed. Even at 6, it pretty much removes most of Puppet stuff. And we get a draw, which is great. And Otherworld Rift isn't bad, considering we are going to get another artifact out of that. So yeah, sometimes flooding artifacts early does work out in your favour. So we can go for Legacy and for Icarus, which is even better than I'd expected originally. Still not the best, but it worked out. Because they do only have 2 cards, and Hybrid Portal, I can't think of much that they'd have that could deal with these followers both at the same time. So they do admit defeat, which is great. So I hope you guys did enjoy this video. This is a deck that I have been covering for a while, so you can go back and check out previous videos. They are all on my channel. If you do check the rotation folder, I'm sure there is at least a few from just this expansion alone that covered this deck. Endless Artifact is just something that I really had a lot of fun with and been refining as I go per meta, and it seems to be doing still pretty well. I mean, a few games in a row, pretty easy wins, not really any too much contest with the deck. So if you do enjoy it, hit that like button and subscribe. Do check out the deck list in the description below, and I'll catch you guys next time. See ya.